One of the names that has cropped up again and again in the last 100 or so programmes in the Wildlife on One series has been that of director Keenan Smart. He's particularly fascinated by smaller creatures, insects and marine invertebrates. And this is one of his most unusual programmes. It's certainly the one with the most unusual title. Many strange creatures haunt the depths of the sea, but few have such an unexpected talent as the mantis shrimp. Mantis shrimps belong to the stomatopod branch of the crustacean family. Worldwide, there are about 700 different species, but they are most abundant in the tropics, flourishing in the warm waters of the western Pacific, where reefs fringe coral islands. As well as the fish which thrive here, a host of smaller animals live hidden in nooks and crannies amongst the coral. Some, like mantis shrimps, are skilled in the art of ambush, practicing crustacean karate on passing prey. These underwater muggers have forelimbs shaped like hinged clubs, which they use to bludgeon their victims to death. A spear, which normally lies flat alongside the club, can also be used to impale soft-bodied prey. Roy Caldwell knows that they can spear through flesh to the bone. He never hunts stomatopods barefoot.
One of the things which fascinates me about stomatopods is how alert they are, how aware of their environment. To locate the animals, one tries to find a burrow entrance, which is almost always a round, smooth hole. These animals are constantly peering out of their burrow and respond to almost any kind of disturbance, so that in trying to capture them, very frequently the animal has seen you before you've seen it, and it's only by locating the burrow or the cavity that they live in that we actually find them. You have to be real careful when you pick it up, not to get your hand over the cavity entrance. If you do, you're likely to get a rather nasty strike from the animal inside.
Cavities and burrows play a vital role in the life of a mantis shrimp, but on sandy ground, keeping a roof overhead has its problems. At the burrow entrance, residents are always on the alert, keeping a wary eye out for any passers-by. A sea cucumber, but it's too large to eat. The burrow is a valuable piece of property, and the shrimp takes great care to keep the entrance clear of drifting sand. It shifts large quantities of sand by throwing it out backwards beneath its body. As well as sand, it excavates stone and loose gravel in order to build its home, carrying the rubble in a sort of basket formed by its front limbs. To a mantis shrimp, the value of a burrow is clearly measured by the effort it takes to dig it. But another way to obtain a burrow is to fight for one. fights are often vicious affairs. The weapons carried by mantis shrimps vary with the species. These two combatants have long, jagged spears carried beneath their head. But they're well armoured, and though during these wrestling matches they try every trick to impale one another, battles between spear carriers are more a trial of strength, and one in which the homeowner, apparently, has the greatest incentive for victory, for it usually wins. But when two of the heavily armoured species fight, there is a considerable risk of injury. Finding ways to minimise this danger has been a major influence in shaping the fighting style of stomatopods. This sepiolid is a small relative of the octopus. It buries itself just below the surface of the sand and, like the mantis shrimp, lies in wait for prey to wander within striking distance. Tiny prawns are the sepiolid's favourite food. The stomatopod also likes prawns. Unlike the sepiolid, which shoots out a tentacle to grab food, the spearing mantis shrimp catches prey with a rapid thrust of the barbed rapier slung beneath its head, rather like the praying mantis from which it gets its name. Once it has speared its food, it transfers it directly to its hidden mouth. With the larder in danger of emptying, it's time to see who else is raiding it. Competition so close to home may be tolerated for a while, but sooner or later the mantis shrimp's patience will be exhausted and the rival chased away. Mantis shrimps which possess clubs are called smashers. Their more powerful weapon enables them to inflict severe injuries on one another. So they're very apprehensive when approaching burrow entrances. An unexpected blow from a resident could easily knock off an eye. But lightweight smashers like this species have evolved strong body armour capable of withstanding a repeated battering. Fighting like gladiators, they hide behind the reinforced shield formed by their coiled tail, using it to parry the strikes of their opponent. The tail may even be pushed into the cavity. Eventually, with the defender exhausted, the challenger dives in head first, and after a struggle, its opponent flees. Crabs have a hard carapace that protects them from many of their enemies, but not from the powerful punches of the smasher. The hammer blows are aimed first of all at the legs, knocking some off to immobilize the crab and prevent it snapping back or escaping. The shrimp then picks up the injured crab with its dexterous mouthparts and carries it back to the burrow to eat it. To take the study of these animals further, Roy Caldwell needs live specimens, and he collects them in Hawaii.
One of the most common mantis shrimp found all around the world in warmer waters is Pseudosquilla ciliata. It's a little guy about 3 inches long. They're very, very hard to find. They blend beautifully with the background. And unless the animal's moving, it is really hard to see them. You know, if you can scare them up and they take off, then you can spot them and you got a chance to get a net over them.
A rather different technique is required for species from deeper waters.
living throughout the Indo-Pacific is one of the largest of all stomatopods. The burrows of these animals are truly remarkable. They can be up to 32 feet in length. Once you find a burrow, the process I've worked out for catching them involves using a snare. There are a few tricks we can use to make the animal forget about the snare. In some cases, what I've done is pick up a nearby animal which might normally fall into the burrow entrance, something like a sea cucumber or a snail, and you throw that down the burrow entrance. The animal grabs it, comes rushing to throw it out again, forgets about the noose, and then you can catch it.
Roy has to handle this animal with care. Its spears can reach out 5 inches and each carries 13 sharp spines. By giving animals like these artificial burrows, he's able to observe in detail the nature of the defensive strike. Only high-speed photography, slowing down the movement 20 times, reveals the spearing action. The strike of a mantis shrimp is one of the fastest animal movements. Its speed is over 1,000 centimeters a second, and that's against the resistance of the water. In his lab at the University of California in Berkeley, Roy studies the interactions of these miniature warriors. One of his most surprising discoveries is that mantis shrimp can recognize individuals with whom they have previously fought. To investigate this, Roy placed animals in a test arena filled with clean water. At one end of the arena, a hole leads into a small plastic bottle. Mantis shrimp enter such chambers without much hesitation and treat them like home. When an intruder is introduced, they fight for ownership. The victor is the one which keeps the chamber. The fight over, both animals are removed and the test arena cleaned and the water replaced. The victor, still inside the bottle, is placed in its home container. Then a fresh bottle containing water taken from the victor's home container prior to the fight is screwed onto the arena and the defeated animal reintroduced. Although the animal which previously vanquished it is not in the bottle, but only its odor, the intruder this time approaches very hesitantly, carefully examining the entrance, peering into it, and even engaging in mock battles, coiling and displaying at the phantom resident. The defeated stomatopod can identify the chemical name tag of its conqueror in the water inside the bottle, and apparently remembers that it has already fought against this opponent and lost. Even courtship can be an aggressive affair. In one species, the female takes the initiative, chasing and harassing a male of her choice in an attempt to seduce him. Eventually, the male is bullied into submission. He stimulates her back, grabs hold of her, and hangs on until he gets the opportunity to mate. Mantis shrimp are remarkably pugnacious and often, it seems, fearless. Few animals will tackle an octopus 10 times their size and weight. Octopuses seek out crevices to hide in, but they may think twice about approaching one occupied by a mantis shrimp. fish are their main enemies. Caught in the open, they sometimes stand their ground. A mouthful of striking mantis shrimp can be hard to swallow, and many are spat out again unharmed. The heavyweight champion of the mantis shrimp world is a large green smasher from the Philippines, which can grow to 16 centimeters, 6 inches in length. Its body and tail are reinforced with calcified plates, knobs and ridges. But as stomatopods get larger, the increased power of their strike outstrips the protection provided by their armor. When these heavyweights hit one another, the effect on an unwary opponent is literally stunning. Coiled up in shock, the concussed individual must keep its armored tail between its head and the attacker to prevent further injury while it recovers. Only females are allowed into a male's burrow, but mating between two such aggressive animals is never a gentle affair. The male has to turn her on her back to copulate. Immediately afterwards, the female turns nasty, and the male must make a quick exit, even if that means breaking through the back door. So, just how powerful are the blows of a large mantis shrimp, and how skilled are they at learning and at manipulating objects? These are questions for which Roy Caldwell has been seeking the answers in his laboratory.
In one particular experiment that we've been running, we present the animals with cubes of different colors. These are plastic cubes, which on one face has been placed a piece of glass. And for the animal to extract the food, it must break through the glass. One color of cube will contain a piece of shrimp. And what we're finding, to our surprise, is that these animals are incredibly good at learning which cube has the food, which cube to open. After the animal has selected the appropriate cube, it returns it to its burrow and literally smashes its way through the glass to extract the shrimp.
The glass doesn't harm the stomatopod, and whilst inexperienced animals at first aim strikes anywhere on the cube, they soon become skilled at selecting the side with the thin glass and breaking it open. Stomatopods have 8 pairs of appendages. The last 3 pairs are walking legs, but amongst the first 5 are long, finger-like hooks used to grasp objects. It's these hooks which reach in and remove food from the cube.
One of our plastic cubes is very much like a snail. There's a thick shell which has to be broken to get through to the meat. When we gave the animal different size members of one particular species, we found that with small snails, it maybe took 4 or 5 strikes to break open the prey. As the prey became larger, the number of strikes that it took to break it open became considerably greater, so that for a fairly large snail, the animal may have to work for an hour or more, delivering up to 500 strikes before it was able to extract the meat.
These pugilists will hit out at anything, so to measure the precise force of the knockout punch, Roy rigged up an oscilloscope wired to a rubber punch bag. When the bag is punched, the impact is transferred via a force transducer to the oscilloscope screen. The results were astonishing. The power of the strike is just a little less than that of a .22 caliber bullet. With this sort of firepower around, it's no surprise most crabs like to keep their heads down. Tiptoeing past a burrow may be another way of keeping out of trouble. But even burrowing out of sight will not protect a crab from a hungry mantis shrimp. The full impact of both clubs can break a crab apart, destroying its nervous system and killing it instantly. The evolution of more formidable weapons enables stomatopods to consume larger prey. That, however, also meant that individuals were able to fight one another more effectively, and therefore they had to develop heavier armor at the same time. Now, few creatures in their world can compete with them. Even the reef's armor-plated battle tank, the slipper lobster, meets its match. It can't outgun a mantis shrimp. A duel like this is high noon for the lobster and any other challenger to the undefeated title holder, the fastest claw on the reef. Amazing mantis shrimps. And there'll be more fascinating animals in Wildlife on One next week. But few others could do this to a Rubik cube.